Welcome to the end of 2017, you made it! Or, depending on when you're watching this, the beginning of 2018, or 4018, in which case, dear archaeologist, I'd like you to know that I, the Broadway Neophyte, was the most popular and relevant entertainer of the early 21st century. But no matter what the year is, it's an important time to throw out the baggage from the old year, look forward to the new, and resolve to improve ourselves. But not everyone is so lucky. Today we're going to look at Groundhog Day, a 2016 musical comedy adapted from a 1993 Bill Murray movie of the same name, in which an arrogant weatherman is trapped in a time loop that forces him to live February 2nd over and over again. This adaptation stars Andy Carl and features music and lyrics by Australian comedian and musician Tim Minchin, also known in the theatre world for the musical version of Matilda. So, can a show about a man trapped in the most monotonous existence imaginable bring us something new? Let's find out. I'm the Broadway Neophyte, and this is Groundhog Day. We open in Punxsutawney, Pennsylvania, where the small-town citizens are awaiting the annual Groundhog Day ceremony, in which their local famous rodent emerges from his burrow and either sees his shadow, forecasting 6 more weeks of winter, or doesn't, indicating the start of spring. The Punxsutawneyans are friendly, down-to-earth people with big winter coats and homemade signs, hoping the groundhog won't see his shadow, but ready to celebrate even if he does. Very sweet and charming, but arrogant TV weatherman Phil Connors, visiting town to report on the ceremony, isn't having it. About a miserable day in Punxsutawney, running into obnoxious insurance salesman Ned, meeting his new producer Rita, and getting stuck in town after a snowstorm closes all the roads. In some pretty solid dramatic irony, Phil vows to leave as soon as the blizzard ends, and looks forward to never having to wake up in Punxsutawney again. But he wakes up caught in a time loop, where it's a lot of fun to see the townspeople recreate the same choreography from before, with only Phil reacting differently in confusion. Phil's really kind of a scumbag, rude and dismissive of the townspeople and creepy towards Rita, so it's satisfying to see him get inconvenienced and humiliated repeatedly. Fearing that he's hallucinating the time loop, he consults various unhelpful quack doctors in a musical number where you can definitely see Tim Minchin's disdain for alternative medicine coming out.
I don't even know if I believe what I'm saying. This guy is clearly nuts, but he is desperate and he's paying. Statistically, he might as well be sitting home and praying. For all the good that I can do, I don't have a freaking clue.
He also bonds with some regulars at the local bar, who relate to his feelings of being trapped in a cycle where every day is the same and nothing they do matters.
With no tomorrow, we could eat anything and never get fat.
Yeah, even blackjacks.
We could drink anything.
Wait.
And never get hungover.
Go on.
No cholesterol, no lectures, no limits, no rules. We could do whatever we want. We can do whatever we want. That's right.
Accompanied by a sick fiddle solo and some cool special effects that allow us to see overhead shots of a drunken car chase on stage, Phil realizes that since his friends have no figurative future and he has no literal future, they can become the ultimate hedonists without worrying about long-term consequences. After being put in jail for the night and waking up back in his hotel on February 2nd, he starts to treat everyone terribly and does some adorable dance moves. He's able to charm women by learning the right things to say to them through days of trial and error, but keeps messing up his attempts to win over Rita.
Believe it or not, I studied 18th century French poetry.
What a waste of time, huh?
The problem is, he's known her a lot longer than she's known him, so he keeps coming off as even more of a pushy creep than he actually is, and it's hard for him to be quirky and spontaneous when he's done literally everything on their date dozens of times.
Perfect spot! Oh, assassin! Show off, I'll protect you, Your Majesty! Oh, I shall die for you! I haven't done this since I was a kid. You? Got him! God! I love kids! Oh, hey, come you gonna throw any? I bet you'll hit him right in the noggin, huh? What's the matter?
Something's weird.
After living through so many February 2nds, Phil considers himself an omnipotent, unkillable god, but a miserable one trapped in Punxsutawney. He can't even escape the time loop through suicide.
Really?
He finally explains his situation and admits his sadness and vulnerability to Rita, who spends the day walking around town with him and inspires him to see the time loop as an opportunity to learn things and make friends. Decides to take piano lessons and makes some endearing attempts to be nicer to the townspeople.
Lancaster, this coffee is remarkably drinkable.
Bing! Oh! Just like high school.
Ned, I'm so sorry. It's a bad habit. Here.
He even spends several days trying to save a homeless man he finds dying on a bench before accepting that death is inevitable and it's important to enjoy life while he can. Eventually, Phil pulls off acts of kindness for all the Punxsutawneyans, everything from changing tires to buying Rita some warm boots because he knows her feet always get cold. He uses his newfound piano skills to play keyboards at the Groundhog Day banquet, and shares a dance with Rita.
I know now that I know nothing. But I'm here, and I'm fine, and I'm seeing you for the first time.
The next morning, he wakes up to find that it's February 3rd, and he and Rita watch the sunrise together. I've been a fan of Tim Minchin for a while, and you can definitely see his love for puns and wordplay coming out in the soundtrack. Even the track titles Philanthropy and Philandering are puns on Phil's name. There's also a lot of country and folk-style acoustic guitar and fiddle, which is fun in the drinking binge number and very sweet in Phil and Rita's dance at the banquet. One song that stands out especially, both musically and staging-wise, is Hope, sung by Phil in Act 2 after he's been trapped in Punxsutawney for some time. This song uses one of my favorite musical theater devices, the song with hopeful lyrics that's actually about something incredibly dark. Phil's hope is of successfully committing suicide, and despite an intense rock number and montage of stunt doubles attempting different methods, he keeps waking up in his hotel bed on February 2nd.
Hold on to your faith, you'll find another way. After acid and gas and guns and razors and rope, you may want to live, but baby, don't give.
This is the most pitch black this musical gets, and despite the dark comedy of the sheer amount of ultimately harmless suicides, it's obvious Phil is at rock bottom here. It's shortly after this he admits how miserable he is to Rita. On a slightly lighter note, there's the Act 1 finale, One Day, another technically impressive ensemble number. In this song, all the townspeople sing about the resolutions they're putting off for another day, which for Phil will never come. Himself staggers through the sped-up daily routine like a zombie, losing hope of winning over Rita or escaping Punxsutawney.
What do you know? It's Groundhog Day. Spring will come and then there will be
In general, I thought this was a very sweet, funny musical with fantastic staging. There were so many little touches I liked, like the fake snow, the turntables, the guy in the groundhog fursuit. You would think a show about the same day happening over and over in a boring little town would get visually monotonous, but they pull off a lot of complicated set and lighting effects and illusions that keep things interesting. Phil and Rita are a little generic as characters, the snarky, arrogant womanizer who thinks he's too good for everything, and his compassionate, down-to-earth love interest who teaches him to be a better person, but they still have a lot of fun interactions, especially with how baffled Rita is at Phil's increasingly strange time loop behavior.
Enjoy the sticky bun.
I don't want a sticky bun!
Yes, you do.
The side characters of Punxsutawney also get a few good songs, showing they have more depth than the archetypes Phil sees them as. His one-night stand Nancy wants to be more than an objectified prop in someone else's story, and Ned the annoying insurance salesman is grieving the death of his wife. Ultimately, Phil is only able to win Rita's love and escape the time loop by showing empathy and understanding for other people. Incidentally, an arrogant celebrity learning to be humble while trapped in a small town is also the exact plot of Pixar's Cars. So draw from that the conclusions that you will. I'm the Broadway Neophyte, and we're here, and we're fine, and we're gonna have a great new year.